KDUH with you.
Coming up on this month's edition of News Magazine, the touching story of Rapid City's Jason Gibson. Following his liver transplant in Pennsylvania, he'll hear from friends via the magic of television.
Please come home. We love you.
Cattle rustling is alive and well in the Black Hills. We'll talk with this high-flying cattle rustling cop, and we'll turn back the clock at Fort Laramie in Wyoming. That's the award-winning News Magazine, Thursday, June 21st at 6:30, only on these stations. Good evening, everyone. I'm Dave Barker, and welcome to the June edition of News Magazine. Tonight, we'll update the story of Rapid City's Jason Gibson, whose long wait for a liver transplant operation is finally over.
Jason, what do you want most of all?
A liver.
Cattle rustling, still a big problem in the Black Hills region. We'll take to the skies to survey the problem.
Difficult to tell how great the problem is because of the problem of not getting reports on livestock that are stolen.
Fort Lewis in Wyoming. We'll take a nostalgic look at the way things used to be.
Turned around and smiled for a while and went to Carawa. Heard the song pipers of the gallant 41.
And who said Mount Rushmore can't sing? And we'll begin our News Magazine adventure right after this. We now have a story with lots of noise, old-time music,
Riley was a soldier, the pride of Company B. In all the movement regiment, no better man than he.
and visual reminders of a time long past. News Magazine's Tom MacArthur now takes us to Fort Laramie, Wyoming, where the clock has been turned back all summer long.
This is the Fort Laramie National Historic Site in southeastern Wyoming, just a few miles south of the present-day town of Fort Laramie. It is situated next to the Laramie River, for which the fort was named. 150 years ago, in 1834, the fort saw its beginning as a fur trading post, and then in 1849 became a military post for the U.S. Army. Fort Laramie figured prominently in the covered wagon migrations to Oregon and California, also in a series of bloody Indian battles, and in many other pioneer events until the fort was abandoned in 1890. Today, the old fort stands in loneliness, its frontier associations long since faded, yet still a reminder of the historic struggles and romance of an expanding nation.
Strolling through the green fields on a summer day, watching all the country girls working up the hay. I really was delighted, but he tore my heart a while. He left me for the pardon of the gallant 41.
Some of the magic of that time is being brought back to life this summer with what's called Living History. In preparation for this summer, Fort Laramie was the site of a week-long camp last month. The camp is actually a course offered by the University of Wyoming in living history. The class brings its students to live as they would have had they been at Fort Laramie in the year 1876. Mike Livingston is usually the chief park historian at Fort Laramie. Today, he's in the Army of 1876.
It's quite a culture shock that takes place when you take people out of 1984 and put them back into 1876. You take your wristwatches away and their magazines and newspapers and whatnot, and cut them off from the rest of the world, literally. You find that that the immediate needs of life, food, clothing, and shelter, become very, very important, and the other things, such as what's happening in the world and you know, who's doing what, becomes less important to you. So it's a real culture shock that takes place.
There are two types of history. Academic history deals with facts, names, dates, and places.
Fire! Cease firing! Secure the peace!
And social history, which goes a step further to answer the questions on what the people themselves were like. Both, however, are usually only found in the flat pages of a book. Living history combines the two and adds a third dimension, employing all of the senses in a world where someone can learn history by living it.
You have no idea what it's like of standing on guard out in the hot sunlight wearing a wool uniform until you do it.
Jack Wise is a student at the University of Wyoming.
Okay, the fallacy of people saying, oh, if I could go back to those times where there's no fences, no private properties, that is all completely false idealism, because when you look at it realistically, they had no treatments for diseases. If someone had cholera or smallpox, it was rampant. There was no cures for any of it. The not having any border fences or going on the next man's property is far outweighed by the hardships of the life itself. It's insanity to even think that you'd be out here roaming the wide open places. It's a hard life.
Life in 1876, by our standards today, could be described as rustic. Mattresses were stuffed with straw along with the insects that lived in them. Clothes were washed by hand with soap that was made that way too.
Meals at the fort were basically rustic as well. A typical meal consisted of bread and buffalo stew. Boy.
And living this way for a week, you can imagine and better appreciate what a soldier at the fort would feel like after several months or even years of living this way. Christopher Summit is a seasonal ranger at the Custer Battlefield National Monument.
With the almost week-long experience, you get to, especially toward the end of the week, almost think and feel a real feeling for the time. I mean, you get dirty, you get smelly, you grow into life of a frontier post, and you certainly will appreciate, especially life in 1984 after you spent it in the 19th century, just for a week. It's a nice place to visit, but some people might not want to stay doing it.
For the duration of the class, each of the students takes on the persona of someone who would have actually lived at the fort in 1876. Thus realizing the hardships of that time through a first-person experience. And it is through the eyes of such a person that we come to appreciate the life of today and better understand the life of yesterday. University of Wyoming student Chris Genter.
I came from Pennsylvania, from a logging family, and my sweetheart lost his life down in Gettysburg. He was with the Bucktail Regiment from McKean County. And I headed west, not anticipating to come here. I headed west and ran out of money in Indiana. I got involved with the Army through the company, and as the company moved, I moved with them, and here I am. We came here sometimes thinking that it was all glittering. We see the soldiers march by, and it's so nice, but at night when the wind howls and the snow piles up around the tents, it's not so glittering anymore.
You wish you were back home?
Sometimes, yes.
It was Shakespeare who said, "What's past is prologue." We have to understand where we've been to understand where we are, and more importantly, to understand where we're going. The group that we've met here at Fort Laramie today is helping us understand where we've been by bringing a piece of American history back to life.
Watching all the country girls working up the hay. Really was delighted by the torn.
The Fort Laramie National Historic Site in Wyoming. Tom MacArthur, Newsmagazine.
And by the way, the folks at Fort Laramie will be continuing this celebration until September 1st. So if you want to get down there and take a look at the way things used to be, you've got plenty of time. And Newsmagazine will continue right after this. And if you have any comments on tonight's news magazine or have ideas for future programs, please drop us a line. The address, News Magazine, care of KOTA Television, Box 1760, Rapid City, South Dakota, 57709. Thanks for joining us. Good night, everyone.
Indian activist Leonard Peltier heads to court looking for a new trial, and we'll have the latest on that arrest of a man accused of kidnapping 2 Black Hills girls. You're in touch with Newsline tonight at 10.
Good evening, I'm Dave Barker, and this is News Magazine.
This is a demonstration for George Bush.
Tonight, David Brinkley, for over 30 years, a very visible force in American journalism.
We spent a lot of money, we bought a lot of food and so on here, so what's the harm in that?
You may not recognize this man right off, but as soon as he opens his mouth, you will.
There once was a pretty young lass who hailed from the Bay State of Mass. She stepped into the bay on a fine summer day, and the water right up to her.
And we'll show you a more serious side to CBS's Charles Osgood.
I'm kind of glad that I have specialized in certain areas of this business that do not involve keeping your claws real sharp.
And Mike McCartney shows us an entire volunteer group of search and rescuers.
What happened? Are you okay down there?
From Nebraska, Tom MacArthur introduces us to this man and the unusual sound he makes. We'll show you some things which didn't quite make the air.
Forget the politics. The Olympics is still the greatest event in the world. And Newsline and the, not Newsline, the Great American West, okay, here we go, ready?
Chapters 1 and chapters 25, and why did I do that? Okay, here we go again.
Dick Enberg doesn't have these problems.
Our News Magazine version of Bloopers coming up. It's a fascinating and fun news magazine, and it all begins right after this. Dulcimer. Not many people may know what this is. Anybody here in the studio know what a dulcimer is? Very funny. Now, really, what is a dulcimer? Well, it's not really a harp. It's not really a guitar. A dulcimer is, I'll tell you, News Magazine's Tom MacArthur knows somebody who can tell us a lot better than I.
This is the home of the Fallbush family here in Scottsbluff, Nebraska. It looks like many other homes on the east side of town until you notice that bumper sticker on the car parked outside. Dulcimers make striking sounds. Indeed they do. Let's go on inside and listen. Meet Albert Fallbush. He's been playing hammer dulcimers now going on 33 years. The instrument was thought up some 5,000 years ago back in Europe. It was first brought to this country by Russian and German immigrants. Albert's mother was born in Russia, his father in Germany, though to his knowledge neither one of them played the instrument. Not only does Albert play the instrument, but he makes them too. We had the chance to talk in his workshop the other day about how he first became interested in the hammer dulcimer.
If we can turn the clock back a little bit, what was it and when was it that it happened that you said, this is the instrument that I want to learn how to play?
I remember it was about I can't remember, but I was either 4 or 5 or 6 years old, one of those years. And my parents used to go to those Dutch hop weddings. Of course, I had to go along, but they wouldn't let me up by the bandstand. But I remember hearing, I tried to get up close to that dulcimer, and I got chased away. But I tried to, later in the years, after I got about 15 years old, I bought a guitar, and I tried to make it sound like a dulcimer by striking it, and it just didn't have that sound. I tried rubber bands or matchboxes and string no wire over cigar boxes to try to get that sound. I didn't have nothing to work with, but I wanted that sound so bad that I couldn't get it. You have to make a dulcimer to get the sound.
So he made a dulcimer. Albert says it takes him about 120 hours to put one of these instruments together, depending on the detail work to be done. The hammers, he says, take another 20 hours to make. While he's lost a specific count, Albert says his name can be found on some 25 dulcimers all over the country.
When you tell somebody that you play a dulcimer, do they usually say, oh yeah, I know what that is, or do they sort of wonder, a dulcimer, what's that?
Yeah, most, very rare that they know what it is. They'll always ask, what is it? What does it sound like? Well, this guy has a sound of it own, so it's hard to tell them what it sounds like. Tell them it's a trapezoid machine with 92 strings stretched over it and played with a set of mallets.
Making and selling the instrument, though, is only part of the fun. Albert says it's playing the hammered dulcimer that he enjoys the most. As a member of the Polka Playboys, Albert gets the chance to play at a wedding or two every month to share with others the magic and the music of the hammered dulcimer. On September 5th, Albert Fallbush became the first Nebraskan ever to receive the Cultural Heritage Award from the National Endowment for the Arts. The endowment says Fallbush is regarded as one of the great players and master builders of the hammered dulcimer. In Scottsbluff, Nebraska, Tom MacArthur, News Magazine.
And when we come back, some embarrassing moments for some familiar faces. Hey, Marcy, after being here so long and looking at the whole situation, a lot of dead bodies. Hey, okay.
We're the great American shoe store. Jimmy's got you in mind. We're the great American shoe store. No, you don't want to go far. Your Jimmy's going all out for style that's always brand new. We're the great American shoe store for great Americans like you. Great American shoe store.
Oh, I'm here inside the KOTA television studios in Rapid City. Now, if someone could turn on the lights so we can see a little bit better. Great, thank you. Now, it's from here, of course, where most of our local news and public affairs programming originate. Now, from this vantage point, you can see a lot of the behind-the-scenes operation here at KOTA. We have a behind-the-scenes look at some of the funny things which sometimes happen to us broadcasters right now. Take, for example, last Christmas, when Newsline's Larry Dirksen, along with some KOTA staffers, were trying to record a greeting for the U.S. Marines in Lebanon.
Okay, tapes roll.
Yeah.
My name is Larry Dirksen with KOTA News.
And then there is reporter Ross Heipel, who covers the court and police stories for Newsline. Well, one day he ended up interviewing not a police official, but Smokey the Bear, an interview Ross couldn't quite handle.
And it just burns the forest, kills the animals. Horrible, horrible.
Would you lose a lot of friends if there'd be a big fight out here?
Oh, Ross, all my friends, you know. I got the deer and the squirrels, all those guys. They're my friends, my buddies. I don't want to see them hurt.
Well, that's too bad.
I'll get around.
Okay. And Art Jones, our morning anchorman and weekend weathercaster, was filling in on Party Line recently. I tell you, Art will do anything for attention.
Oh, well, I don't really care. He might. I don't think he'll strangle me or anything.
All right. That's a bull snake, all right?
And we now have something that's not really a blooper, but look at how things are not always as they appear. Now, things in television always look so easy when they are finished and finally on the air, but here's an example of how I do my thing for News Magazine. Now, let's first take a look at how one segment ended up looking on the air. We now have a story with lots of noise, old-time music, and visual reminders of a time long past. News Magazine's Tom MacArthur now takes us to Fort Laramie, Wyoming, where the clock has been turned back all summer long. And now here's how it really looked as we recorded it. Does this look stupid? I don't know what else to do with my hands. How's my hair? We now have a story with lots of noise. Keep it up. Some noise. Keep it going. Old-time music. And visual reminders of a time long past. Marcy Christensen and I recently brought you a half-an-hour news documentary on the historic archaeological dig at the Custer Battlefield in southeast Montana. It was a very challenging story for Marcy and me, but another challenge was just spitting out the right words.
3, 2, 1. I'm Marcy Christensen.
And I'm Dave Barker.
Sure you are. 1. I'm Marcy Christensen.
And good evening, I'm Dave Barker. We're here at a very familiar site, the... Okay.
Familiar to you?
So damn familiar, I can't.
Good evening, I'm Marcy Christensen.
And I'm Dave Barker. We're here at the... that's fine.
I guess I'm always leery about what to do with my hands.
Well, how about if I do that and you do that? Okay,
I'll just put my hand in my pocket like this.
Oh, no, you can go ahead and do that. I'll just do this.
1. I'm Marcy Christensen.
Who cares?
For some important finds have already been made.
You screwed up, didn't you?
I know.
Hey, Marcy, after being here so long and looking at the whole situation, a lot of dead bodies. I hate it. Mike Powers, one of the most professional sports directors I've ever worked with. He's a good friend and very good at what he does, but like everyone else, Mike has his days. Now, take, for example, the day he and I were at the Los Angeles Coliseum shooting a special sports series on the Olympics and Randy Lewis. Now, Mike had a small problem. The problem? His mouth.
We can bring you our... This is a bad day. This is a bad day. I screwed up one, right? The Olympics on Newsline. Oh, it was there, Dave. The tradition continues. All right, we'll get it. Now, that's not even close to what we want. Get to this place. Cut. Take. Newsline Sports. Newsline. These will not go on the blooper tape. We will not watch these and make fun of me.
I don't even think.
All right. Yeah, you're right. That's the only way otherwise. Okay. Los Angeles is alive with the pageantry and, yeah, okay. Ready? Forget the boycott. Forget the politics. The Olympics is still the greatest event in the world. And Newsline and the... Not Newsline. The Great American West... Okay, here we go. Ready? But Randy... Okay, hold on. That's not it. If anyone deserves to be a called 3, 2... But that may be a deeply... Okay. Shoot. But even the... All right, I'm done.
And then just down the road at Anaheim Stadium, Mike's mouth cooperated, but the crowd didn't.
Get the camera on them. Get some close-ups. Down to the wire. Didn't make any sense, but I didn't stumble.
Ooh, boy, Powers is going to kill me for that one. Well, that is News Magazine for September. Now, we won't be with you next month because of a special political debate. We'll tell you more about this as we get closer to that event. So until November, good night, everyone.
Hi, I'm Margaret Clank with ABC's One Life to Live.
And I'm Marianne Harris with KOTA. We want to urge you to enjoy One Life to Live.
And don't miss the sparkling and informative interviews of Marianne Harris and Vern Shepard on Feature This and Party Line, weekdays at noon, right here on these channels.
We bring it all to you. The best shows, the best stars, the best of everything. Right here on ABC and the Great American West Television Network.
We're with you.
On the next Barney Miller, the guys apprehend a car thief.
Exactly when did you steal this car? October 6, 1957.
Little Levitt gets some attention.
Put you up for a Medal of Valor. Well, you must be trained.
And it's open season on litterbugs.
That slob threw a Snickers bar down on the grass and I made him get down there with it.
Watch Barney Miller at 11:05 weeknights.
We're with you. KOTA's with you. We're with you.
First picture. The man is standing on his head. Now he's lying down. Now that's perfect. Look out! What's this show about? People. Then can we see some people, please? Oh, there they are. Oh, look at her. Wonder what he's doing. They look like they're having...
Chinese dishes for excellent food, Chinese or American hospitality and good service. Come to the Oriental House at 1502 East 20th in Scottsbluff.
Hello, I am Paul Broyhill, Chairman of Broyhill Furniture Industries. I would like to welcome you to our newest Broyhill Showcase Gallery. This latest concept in furniture merchandising features the three most popular styles of furniture today: colonial, contemporary, and traditional, all professionally decorated and very tastefully accessorized. Come see us at our newest Broyhill Showcase Gallery.
The Broyhill grand opening at Weber Furniture this weekend. Don't miss it. Weber Furniture, North Broadway, Scottsbluff.
Why gamble? We at Kazar Chevrolet realize the investment required to buy a good quality used car or truck. Rather than buying your neighbor's car or one from a used car dealer selling them as is, we offer an alternative, Satisfaction Plus. A 90-day, 4,000-mile powertrain warranty. This warranty covers engine, transmission, and rear axle in the car of your choice. Make your selection from our huge inventory. Remember, what good is a good deal without a good dealer? That's Kazar Chevrolet, Scottsbluff.
That is Newsline for this evening. From all of us here at Channel 4, thank you for joining us. Have a good weekend. Good night.
This is KDUH-TV, Scottsbluff, Nebraska.
Good evening. With Newsline, I'm Tom MacArthur. A Scottsbluff man was killed today when his delivery truck collided with a train at a rail crossing on the east side of town.
It happened around 10 o'clock this morning. A westbound Burlington Northern train was coming down these tracks. A Pepsi Cola distributing truck was coming up this road from the Scottsbluff water treatment plant and made a right-hand turn into the path of the oncoming train. Brian Anderson saw the accident this morning. He was driving behind the truck when it happened.
You were driving down? I was just driving along, and he pulled out of the waste treatment facility here and was just rolling along. Came up on the tracks. Must have not seen the train. Just hit him in the side right in the front.
It was a local train with only 6 cars, traveling at about 45 miles per hour. Burlington Northern officials say the crossing alarm bells and signal lights were working at the time of the accident. Another witness says he did indeed see the lights and hear the bells. The driver of the truck apparently did not. Perhaps he was thinking about the weather, perhaps he was thinking about the weekend, or maybe he was checking his log for the next stop. He never saw the lights, he never saw the train until it was too late.
The Scottsbluff County Sheriff's Office identified the man killed in that accident as Robert L. Spence of Scottsbluff. Spence was 41 years old. In our state capital today, Governor Bob Kerrey proposed a $225 million plan to cut local property taxes by 25%. The governor plans to accomplish that by extending the state sales tax to services and items not currently being taxed. Kerrey unveiled the proposal in a closed-door meeting with about a dozen senators this morning. Kerrey says the plan is just in the discussion stage and was offered to see if he could find a consensus among senators on the need for a special legislative session. Kerrey says he plans to decide by early next week whether to call that special session. If one is called, the main item on the agenda would be to consider a proposed constitutional amendment to allow a separate lower tax classification for farmland. Without the change, many rural senators feel farmers will face property tax hikes because of a recent state Supreme Court ruling. Kerrey says another issue that might be taken up in that special session would be relief for depositors of the insolvent Commonwealth Savings Company of Lincoln. If the issue of agricultural land valuation is indeed brought up in a special session, there is some question as to whether it would make really any difference. There are some saying yes it will, others are saying no it won't, leaving those who own farmland in the middle, wondering what's going on. Newsline's Northern Bureau reporter Doug Fratelloni has more tonight on what local farmers are actually facing.
From the Mirage Flats area, I'm Doug Fratelloni for Newsline.
Well, United Telephone customers in Gering will soon be calling through a new $1.5 million computer.
If you made a phone call from Gering today, it went through these banks of switches. These mechanical switches were installed in 1958 and, as you can hear, make quite a bit of noise in their job of connecting the calls. But these mechanical switches will soon be replaced by a computer. Area manager for United Telephone, David Hosier, explained the benefits of the new system.
Several benefits. Number one is, of course, it takes up a lot less space. It's much cheaper for us to maintain because it's electrical as opposed to electromechanical. It'll provide faster service as far as the actual dialing capabilities. It will provide customers more functions such as the custom calling features, local measured service, and all those things are not available. We cannot actually operate with that kind of switch. Okay. So those are advantages for us as well as for the consumer.
The old switching equipment, as you can see, is quite large. In fact, you've only seen part of it. The entire system fills this whole room from floor to ceiling. The new switching equipment will fit within these two rectangles and will not be much taller than the average person. Gering Mayor John McClellan says he's excited about the new system.
Well, I guess it's kind of you get a little bit of an amazed feeling by the fact that they can put so much of what we have now into a compact area as we were talking about in the other room. I guess the thing that's exciting to me is the fact that United Telephone has made a commitment to the citizens of Gering, and we're very pleased about the fact that the new switching facility will bring us the same services that our sister city of Scottsbluff has, and the state-of-the-art for our commercial users as well, because that has been somewhat of a problem in the past, and we're very pleased that they've made the commitment to do that.
United Telephone says, aside from the benefits of the custom calling features, about the only difference you may notice if you're connected to the Gering system is that your dial tone and ringing tone will sound just a little bit different by October of next year. Summertime is vacation time, but it's also the season for burglaries when people are away from home. Local police departments in the area, however, are gearing up to help make your vacation time a good time.
Here in Gering, any number of houses on any given day sit vacant while their owners are on vacation. sitting targets for any would-be burglar who thinks his chances for a successful job may be better if no one's at home. Gering Police Chief Kelly Gaskell offers some tips on how to increase the odds against your house being the target of a burglar.
You need to have timers on your lights so that they go on and off at different times. We need to have the mail stopped. We need to have the post office hold until you get back, as well as newspapers, that type of thing. We'd like to have other people checking the house as well as the police department. Make sure, of course, that you have adequate locks, that you put rods in the sliding doors and that type of thing.
Aside from offering words of advice in the battle against burglars, the Gering Police Department offers a house check program where they will actually help protect your house and property while you're away. To get on the house check list, Gaskell says all you need to do is call the department with your address and the dates you'll be gone, and they'll take it from there.
We actually check the house physically. We'll walk up to the doors, make sure that they're not unlocked, not open. We'll check the windows. We'll also check for damage or hoses running, anything of that nature, any vandalism around the property.
Gaskell says the frequency of the house checks varies anywhere from twice a day to twice a week. And when you're on vacation far away from home, it's nice to know that you've got a friend who is providing a burglar with the last thing he wants to see, the squad car of your local police. Most police departments offer house check programs similar to the one in Gering. If you're going on vacation soon, you may want to give your local police department a call. Newsline Update continues right after this. And that concludes the audition tape of Tom MacArthur. I thank you very much for your time.
He's hitting .341 against the league. He'd probably...